So it's 7 o'clock, so we'll get started now. Good evening, and thank you all for joining us today. This is the public information meeting for project 85-147, which is for bridge number 3426, which is the Mohegan-Pequot bridge. The bridge carries Route 2A over the New England Central Railroads, the P&W Railroads, the Thames River, and it connects between Montville and Preston, Connecticut. My name is James Barrows, and I'm the project manager with the Department of Transportation that's on this project. Today's agenda will be to introduce the project team. We'll then follow that with a formal presentation of the design process. We'll explain the condition of the existing bridge and describe the project, purpose and needs, and then we'll display the recommend a viable proposal. The design plans are about 30% complete. And then we'll explain anticipated project benefits and impacts. Following that, we'll have an open forum for comments and questions. But first, I'd like to start with the Title VI. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We do also have a voluntary post-meeting survey, which you can access by going to portal.ct.gov/CTDOT survey, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. This can also be found on the project website. We have more civil rights information that can be accessed at portal.ct.gov/DOT/business/office-of-equity/title6-VI-page. A recording of this presentation will be posted to YouTube following this event. And closed captioning, including non-English translations options, are available on Zoom and YouTube. So this is our Title VI notice. The Connecticut Department of Transportation, CTDOT, operates its programs and services without regard to race, color, or national origin in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Any person who believes she or he has been aggrieved by any unlawful discriminatory practices under Title VI may file a complaint with the CTDOT. For more information on CTDOT's Civil Rights Program and the procedures to file a complaint, contact the CTDOT Title VI coordinator at 860-594-2169 or deborah.goss@ct.gov, or visit our administrative office at 2800 Berlin Turnpike in Newington, Connecticut. For more information, you can visit ct.gov/DOT. This is the exact same slide that I just read, but in Spanish, for anybody that would also like to see that. So as I mentioned, we do have closed captioning and subtitles in Zoom. So you can click on the show captions, which is the little CC button, click the speaking languages, and then select the language you would like from the list below. Closed captioning is also available on YouTube after the event. For those of us in person, we'll have a formal Q&A where you guys can just openly talk to us. For those of you on Zoom, you can use the Q&A section to be able to send us comments and messages. You can select the Q&A tool at the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. The Q&A window will then open up as a screen on the right. You can press or type, and then type your comments in the text box and click enter. Questions can also be submitted by email, phone, or through the project website up until December 3rd. The project email is dotproject0085-0147@ct.gov. The phone number is 860-594-2020. And as I said, on Zoom, you can use the Q&A section. The project webpage is portal.ct.gov/DOT Montville 0085-0147. And the comment period will be open through December 3rd, 2024. For the project team, from the Department of Transportation, we have Bao Chung, who's Principal Engineer for Major Structures Unit. Myself, James Barrows, I'm the project and the Supervising Engineer or the Project Manager for the project. And then we have Sarwat Basha, who is the Project Engineer for the project. From CHA Consulting, we have Ryan Cooley, who is the Project Manager, Dan Hoffman, who's the Structures Lead, and online we have Jeff LeMay, who is the Highways Lead. And then from VN Engineers, we have Sam Martha, who will be the traffic lead for this project. So at this time, I'll hand it over to Dan Hoffman and he'll give you guys the formal presentation.
Thanks, James. Okay, good evening. I am Dan Hoffman, structural engineer with CHA, the designer for the project. So today I'm going to be discussing state project number 85147, bridge number 03426, also known as the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge. So the purpose of this project is to maintain the bridge in a state of good repair. The project needs include extending the service life, replacing the pin and hanger assemblies, replacing the expansion bearings, addressing deck deterioration, and replacing the fender system. The bridge for the project location, bridge number 03426, the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge, carries Route 2A eastbound and westbound over the New England Central Railroad, P&W Railroad, and the Thames River in Montville and Preston. The bridge carries one lane of traffic in each direction between Route 32 on the Montville side and Route 12 on the Preston side. Mohegan Sun Casino is located just to the northwest of the bridge. The bridge was built in 1967. In 1985, the pin and hanger assemblies were retrofitted with emergency bearing supports. In 1996, a rehabilitation was performed, which included full blast clean and paint, new protective fence, new light standards, and repairs to the substructure. In 2010, the strip seal expansion joints were replaced with asphaltic plugs, and some deck patching was performed within those limits. So here's a colored plan and elevation view of the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge. The bridge is a 7-span structure comprised of a concrete deck supported by 4 welded steel plate girders. It is approximately 1,434 feet long. Spans 1 and 7 are simple spans. Spans 2 through 6 are continuous over the piers. The pin and hangers in spans 3 and 5. The navigation channel is located between piers 2 and 3 and protected with a timber fender system. This view shows a cross-section of the bridge. Route 2A carries a single lane of traffic in each direction. Each lane is 12 feet wide with 8-foot shoulders throughout the length of the bridge. The bridge has a curb-to-curb width of 40 feet and an overall out-to-out width of 43 feet 6 inches. So before getting into the existing conditions, I thought it'd be helpful to note how condition ratings are determined and the purpose of them. So per the Connecticut Bridge Inspection Manual, condition rating is a judgment of a bridge condition, bridge component condition in comparison to its original as-built condition, and it's used to provide an overall characterization of the general condition of the component being rated. So conditions ratings are assigned a numerical value, each indicating a different condition as shown in the table. And also to help clarify the elements of the bridge, we have included this graphic. So the deck is the surface that you drive on. The parapets are the safety barriers on the edge of the deck. The deck is supported by beams, and this makes up the superstructure of the deck, superstructure of the bridge. The substructure is what supports the superstructure from below. This consists of abutments and with wing walls at the ends of the bridge and piers located as needed to provide intermediate supports. So next, I'll go over the existing conditions of the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge. So for the deck, overall, the deck is noted to be in fair condition. The underside of the deck exhibits spalls with exposed rebar, hollow areas, and cracking. The underside of the deck is approximately 13% deterioration per the inspection report. A ground penetrating radar, GPR evaluation was performed by Infrasense, which shows approximately 20% of the deck deterioration. Existing deck joints are in fair condition. There are deck joints at abutments 1 and 2, piers 1 and 6, and at the pin and hangers within spans 3 and 5. Asphaltic plug joints are located at both abutments and were replaced in 2021 when the bridge was last paved and has no noticeable deficiencies. The joints at the fixed pin and hangers in spans 3 and 5 are pourable joint seals with elastomeric headers installed in 2015. These joints are slightly depressed and have random hairline cracks in the elastomeric headers. Steel finger joints are located at piers 1 and 6 and at the expansion pin and hangers in spans 3 and 5 and are original to the structure. There are hairline cracks in the concrete headers, vertical misalignment between the joint fingers up to 3/8 of an inch, and some section loss in the joint fingers at the curb line. The vertical joint plates at the ends of the deck have some laminated rust and section loss. The concrete parapets are in satisfactory condition. The existing parapets are 36-inch high concrete barriers with 10-inch granite curbing and a 5-foot-high protective fence. The parapets are exhibiting random hairline cracks with and without efflorescence, random spalls with and without exposed rebar. Existing parapet and deck overhang were evaluated and meet strength requirements for TL4 loading. However, the parapets do not meet the latest conduit criteria and are not MASH compliant. So I need to get rid of my. The protective fence is in satisfactory condition and exhibits random areas of impact damage up to 40 feet in length with some tilted posts, isolated disconnected rails, and disconnected mesh fabric. Some bottom rails have perforations of up to 1 foot long and half the diameter. Random tilted posts have up to 1/2-inch gaps at the bottom. So for the approaches, overall, the approaches are in very good condition. There are no approach slabs per the existing plans. The approach guide rail exhibits some random impact damage and bent or twisted posts. All approach guide rail and bridge attachments appear to meet RI or RB standards. The guide rail and bridge attachments do not meet the latest conduit standards and are not MASH compliant. For the superstructure, overall, the superstructure is in fair condition. The bearings are in poor condition. The bearings consist of steel fixed and expansion rocker bearings. Expansion rocker bearings at piers 1 and 6 exhibit painted over pitting with reoccurring laminated rust, pack rust between bearing components, and up to 75% section loss and anchor bolt nuts. Some bearings are overexpanded while some bearings are overcontracted. Fixed bearings at the abutments and piers 2 through 5 exhibit pack rust between sole plates and girder bottom flanges, and up to 20% section loss and anchor bolt nuts, mainly at the abutments. Pot bearings are present at the pin and hanger emergency bearing support locations. The girders are in fair condition, with the paint being in good condition. The girders exhibit less than 5% paint deterioration, isolated areas of painted over steel section loss. The pin and hangers are located in spans 3 and 5. The hangers have scattered pitting up to 1/8 inch deep. The control plates have up to 3/16 inch deep section loss and are typically bowed from pack rust between the girder webs and or the elastomeric spacers. At isolated locations, the control plates are in contact with the web or loose with abrasion rust. The emergency bearing supports have gaps up to 3/4 inches between the edge of the bottom flange and shim plates due to pack rust. Additionally, deterioration such as random areas of laminated rust with section loss, isolated missing connection bolts, and bolt heads and nuts with up to 25% section loss are noted in this recent inspection report. The catwalks are in poor condition. There's a catwalk that extends down the center bay of the bridge with extensions at the pin and hanger locations for inspection. The catwalk has been removed at the abutments and blocked off with rebar cages to discourage access by the public. Deterioration of the catwalks is typically located in span 1 at Pier 1, which is a finger joint location, and it spans 3 and 5 near the pin and hangers. The catwalks exhibit section loss and rust with perforations in the railings and missing horizontal gusset plates. So for the substructure, overall the substructure is in satisfactory condition. Substructure consists of reinforced concrete abutments and piers with stone masonry facing on the footing caps of the river piers. The concrete abutments exhibit hairline cracks, hollow areas, and spalls. The pier columns have random vertical and hairline cracks with isolated efflorescence and rust. Pier columns have isolated locations with hollow areas. The pier caps have random vertical and hairline map cracks with isolated efflorescence. Pier caps have scattered concrete patches with hollow areas on the underside up to full length and width at piers 1 and 6. Underwater, the stone masonry facades have isolated areas of mortar loss. Erosion is rated a 5 due to erosion in front of abutment 2 along the slope. It's up to 3 feet deep with exposed footing up to 1 foot high. That's at abutment 2. Areas of erosion are also present along the wing walls, up to 10 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 1 foot deep. Scour is rated a 6 with channel bottom areas of aggradation and degradation at the piers between inspections. So for the channel and channel protection, overall, the channel and channel protection is in fair condition. This is mostly driven by the fender system condition. There are areas of aggradation and areas of degradation within the channel between inspection reports. Piers 2 and 3 have portions of the footing exposed intermittently up to 4.7 feet high around the perimeter. However, the underwater concrete portion of the footing extends an additional 14 feet below the bottom of footing area. So the existing fender system is in poor condition. The fender system is located alongside piers 2 and 3 on either side of the navigation channel. Deteriorations include loose or missing connection hardware, heavy checking and splits, severe rot, section losses, and teredo damage to the piles. So as I stated before, the purpose of this project is to maintain a state of good repair. The project needs include extending the service life, replacing the pin and hanger assemblies, replacing expansion bearings, addressing deck deterioration, and replacing the fender system. So the major scope of work items include repairs to the structural steel members, including the catwalks, replacing the pin and hanger assemblies with stainless steel components and non-metallic bushings, replacing the wearing surface and membrane waterproofing, replacing the asphaltic plug joints and the joints at the fixed pin and hangers, repairing the concrete deck, parapets, and curbs, removing the haunch extensions over the railroad and waterway, cleaning and painting beam ends, the fixed bearings and end diaphragms, spot painting as required elsewhere, replacing the expansion bearings at piers 1 and 6, repairing the concrete substructure, replacing the fender system with a timber replacement, installing slope protection to address the erosion at abutment 2, upgrading the end block transitions to be MASH compliant with MASH compliant guide rail attachments, replacing partial replacement of the approach guide rail and curbing, some minor full depth shoulder reconstruction and approach milling and overlay, repairing the fence on the parapets and replacing the fence fabric over the railroads, fixing broken weep pipes, extending some weep pipes, cleaning drainage scuppers and removing vegetation from drainage troughs, replacing cracked missing junction box covers and light standard handhole covers, applying a penetrating sealer to the concrete surfaces, and cleaning graffiti. So next I'll discuss some additional information on the existing condition and some of the proposed repairs of a few of the scope items. So the existing steel girders are in fair condition, exhibiting deterioration, including peeling paint, light to moderate rust, laminated rust, and section loss. So proposed would be steel repair plates. There are currently approximately 20 areas of concern that would require steel repairs, not counting the catwalk. This is on the girders. Repairs will include a web stiffener and bottom flange repairs, and also required other repairs to the existing catwalk. So existing the expansion bearings. So the existing expansion rocker bearings at piers 1 and 6 exhibit painted over pitting up to 1/4 inch with recurring laminated rust. Pack rust up to 3/8 between 3/8 inch between bearing components, and up to 75% section loss on the anchor bolt nuts. Some bearings are overexpanded and some bearings are overcontracted. So proposed will be to replace the steel expansion bearings with high load multi-rotational disc bearings. This would will require jacking up the girders to remove the existing bearings and then installing the new bearings. So the pin and hangers assemblies, located in spans 3 and 5. The hangers have scattered pitting up to 1/8 inch depth. Control plates have up to 3/16 deep section loss and are typically bowed up to 3/4 inch back rust between the girder webs and or elastomeric spacers. At isolated locations, the control plates are in contact with the web or loose with abrasion rust. So the proposed condition will be replacing the pin and hanger assemblies with stainless steel components, and as well as non-metallic bushings. So as I noted before, the existing fender system's in poor condition. The fender system is located alongside piers 2 and 3. Deterioration includes loose or missing connection hardware, heavy checking and splits, severe rot, section loss, and tornado damages to the piles. The proposed will be a replacement timber fender system. Will be designed to current AASHTO design collision loading. It is anticipated that the existing channel width will remain the same. So quickly touching on highway geometrics at this project site. As you can see, the bridge is fairly heavily traveled with an ADT of around 22,200 vehicles per day. The project will not change any of the highway geometrics. The environmental resources are listed on this slide, as well as the anticipated permits that may be required. There are wetlands within the project area. Temporary wetland impacts are possible based on potential access routes, but we're still evaluating those options. There will be temporary impacts to the navigation channel during the fender system replacement. This work will be phased, so a portion of the channel will remain open at all times. So for traffic impacts, maintenance and protection of traffic on the bridge will be used for milling and overlay, repairing the concrete deck, installing the membrane waterproofing and pavement, the joint work, and repairing the parapets and protective fence. This work will be accomplished using temporary lane shifts, stage construction, and shoulder closures. It is anticipated that a portion of the deck repairs and deck joint work will be accomplished using temporary off-peak lane and shoulder closures, utilizing alternating one-way patterns. There'll be repair work to the piers adjacent to the railroad, as well as repairs to the superstructure above the railroad. No permanent impacts are anticipated with the railroad, and further coordination will be performed. For utilities and rights of way, there's an AT&T fiber optic conduit on the bridge that runs between Pier 1 and Pier 6. Crosses the river. It may require temporary support and or protection during the superstructure work. For rights of way, there's likely temporary easement required for access to the abutment 2 on the east side of the river. For potential laydown locations, we're currently evaluating the location adjacent to the commuter parking lot on Route 12, just north of the intersection with Route 2A. This would be on DOT property. Other areas may be identified and evaluated during final design. We are currently evaluating a potential access route shown on this slide. This access route would allow the contractor to enter from Route 12 and access under the bridge on the east side of the river for installing the slope protection at abutment 2. This route would cross property owned by the town of Preston as well as private property and would require temporary easement for access. Other access routes may be identified and evaluated as design progresses. So for schedule and construction cost, we're currently in the preliminary design phase. We'll be moving to the final design phase in the spring. Some key dates are shown on this slide. The start of construction is anticipated to be spring of 2028 and is anticipated to last 2 seasons. This project has an estimated construction cost around $33 million, funded with 80% federal funds and 20% state funds. No town funds are required. Just a note that the cost and schedule are preliminary and are subject to change as design progresses. This concludes my presentation. Turn it over to James. Want the
Yeah.
I minimize that.
Okay.
Okay.
So I can still hopefully see it. I have the email too. Okay. So, yep, as Dan said, that concludes the actual formal presentation. So we can start the Q&A session. For those of you online, questions can be submitted multiple ways. The quickest response from us will be able to submit them through Zoom, the Q&A chat that I had mentioned before. You can also submit questions today or for the next 2 weeks through the project email, which again is DOT project 0085-0147@ct.gov. Or if you'd prefer to submit your questions via phone, you can call us at 860-594-2020 and leave a voicemail. Please remember to state your name and the project number in the voicemail so that we can get back to you on that. The online comment period is open from now until December 3rd. So for anybody here, do you guys have questions? Senator Osteen.
So I have a couple questions on the slides that you presented.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about potential traffic impacts, EV and WB. What did you mean by EV and WB? EV being electric boat?
Nope. EB is eastbound and WB is westbound. So traffic coming from Montville to Preston would be your eastbound traffic. And then traffic from Preston to Montville would be westbound or WB.
So having had a huge fire on the Gold Star Bridge,
Yep.
and having traffic that was moved over to the Pequot Bridge, that was an enormous pressure on the ability for that bridge to handle the traffic. And for the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to see increased closures, hopefully not as a result of another fire. We don't need that, but that's going to put additional pressure on that. Has the the amount of traffic that will be moved off of the Gold Star Bridge as construction is going on been taken into any consideration?
You want to answer that one?
I can check the question.
Yeah, so the last 2 years of the Gold Star construction project will overlap with the 2 years of this project. Our unit is handling both the Gold Star project and this project. So we do have internal coordination between the two. You can probably talk a little bit more on the traffic staging and everything for that project than I can, but
Yeah, so I'm Bao Shong, principal engineer for the major bridge. So just briefly to address your question. So we have looked at impact from permits vehicles or EV emergency vehicles mainly for the normal daily traffic, average daily traffic. Then it is monitored, but it's not part of the scope of this project. So the initial purpose of this as presented is to address the structural needs. That's why we have the focus on the structural components, and any future, any concern of the traffic, would be monitored separately.
So you talked a little bit about westbound and eastbound traffic.
Mhm.
And I did not see any consideration towards Gray Wolf Lodge, which is opening up in 3 months and is expected to see tens of thousands of people visiting it. And that one of the access points to that section of the Mashantucket Reservation is going to be over the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge. And that is going to see a significant increase in traffic, but there doesn't appear to be any consideration there. Conversely, the area that you talked about as using as an access point, you said the property is owned by the town of Preston, but it's only owned by the town of Preston for a little bit longer. It's being turned over to the Mohegan tribe. And that's where they're intending to have a large development. Now, that development has not, to my knowledge, has not been formalized. So that's the old state hospital property, right?
it's the state hospital property is just north of this,
So this is is this where the incinerator is on the other side?
further down, yes.
Say it again?
The incinerator is further down, yes.
And so you're thinking that they're gonna go on that side and come in?
We have two options that we are looking at. One is the north side, which is through the old state hospital site that you were talking about.
Right.
That was the one that was used previously. The reason we are leaning more towards this one is there's just going to be less wetland impacts that we're looking into. So that was
So I think not including the development of those two projects,
Mhm.
one that's gonna open up in 3 months, 4 months, by March or April, that one's gonna be opened up, is a mistake by not taking into account the amount of traffic that is going to happen there. So, I think that this bridge needs to be widened across its whole span. And I think that it has to be taken into consideration, the amount of traffic.
okay.
And I get calls all the time on this bridge for its lack of access as a limited access highway, or its lack of access for people either walking or riding bicycles. And I think that as we have taken into consideration on many other areas, that should be taken into consideration here too. People should have an ability to cross the highway in a way that works for them.
Mhm.
And we are working in Norwich on a pathway from the bridge, from the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge to the Norwich Marina, has been a project that is under consideration in the Norwich area. Now, for people here to understand, I talked with some of you today and brought up these same concerns. And the conversation revolving around a multimodal use of this bridge was that if you put a sidewalk there, there's nothing for it to attach to. But the town of Preston has an actual plan that they're trying to get funding for through a community investment fund or LOTSIP or a number of other projects that would have sidewalks in their village area in Pocatonic in the on Route 2A, which is a segue over to Route 2.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that we're thinking too small, and I was wondering, has anybody talked to the partners that we have with the Mohegan tribe and the Mashantucket Tribal Nation on potential funding, because the number that you had indicated, if a concept such as the one that I have described with expanding the entire span with 4-lane traffic, 2 on each side, and adding in an ability for bikes and people to walk across, that would be in the $200 million range. But our partners have worked with us on many projects, and this doesn't make sense to me to think small on something that is going to last 20 years. Because once you do this, you would not essentially be looking at this bridge for another 20 years. It's not like we do this now for a year in 20, well, you're not going to start this until 28, but it's 4 years from now. And then, you know, it's going to last, even if it lasted for 10 years, that's 14 years from now. We would by that time have had both these large projects in Eastern Connecticut in existence for more than a decade without any real consideration of the traffic that is going to see increase. So as it's current, and I appreciate the work that you do. I think it was a very good presentation. I'm opposed to the presentation as it's currently submitted because I don't think it addresses the needs of the area, the needs of the region, or the needs of 2 large economic drivers that we have right here in Eastern Connecticut. So I would work against the project as it's currently presented because it doesn't address any of the needs of the region.
Okay. And
Also comment to the senator's point, in my experience, been involved in the town for over 50 years in the police department, it doesn't take much to tie that bridge up. It can be a simple flat tire because it's so narrow. And with the anticipated growth, the anticipated expansions in the area, the surrounding areas, that this bridge is going to have to accept. And now you throw on the construction that's going to be going on. We're asking for problems. And as the mayor of Montville, I would encourage a further examination of what is projected, and what we know is coming, and then seek the funding to widen that bridge, which is needed 20 years after it's built.
so I just want to tag on to your guys' comments there. Thank you for your guys' comments and your opinions. So the Great Wolf Lodge and the Preston Riverwalk Development Project, both of those will undoubtedly be traffic generators. The developers of those 2 projects need to coordinate with the local traffic authority and the Office of State Traffic Administration to be able to say what those developments are, what the anticipated traffic count and numbers from those 2 developments are, and then we could take those into account into our project. So as of right now, we haven't received anything from either of those.
I understand that you're saying that,
Yep.
but you know this is gonna happen, and if you have not had anybody reach out to you, you need to reach out to them.
Okay.
Because we're putting $33 million into this project, and it's not gonna meet the needs, it'll be throwing good money away, and we all know this project is gonna happen. You have gotten, maybe not you personally, but the Department of Transportation has received letters from the 2 tribal nations. They've received letters from the towns. They've received letters from the Council of Governments on this project. And I know that I've been talking about this for almost as long as I have been a senator, which is 12 years now. So this is not a surprise that we are seeking consideration on increased traffic load on something. And when we all saw what happened after that fire on the Gold Star Bridge, there is no way that you should be waiting and even considering putting this amount of money in without addressing those concerns.
Also, to the activity that the senator mentioned that is projected and we know is coming, but what has not been publicized is the significant amount of housing that's gonna be going on in Montville alone. If you look down the river, you got electric boat with the largest programs they ever had. It's attracting a lot more people, and they need housing, and Montville's ready to provide the housing, and that housing is gonna add more volume to that bridge.
So the other thing, looking at the timing from the Norwich side, Norwich has a Route 82 project. Where you're talking the roundabout project on that side. So from a triangular view, that is adding even more pressure onto a traffic situation. And so we already know, from talking to residents who have come to several public hearings for that project. They're gonna, you're talking a diversion of traffic during peak hours. So the bridge becomes one of those major roadways off of the highway from that side for individuals to get into the other side of Norwich. So I think that's one thing that we have to consider. I think the other part is looking at several other projects that Norwich is also working on. Most notably the arterial road design for the Auckland Industrial Park that they're working on. And so these are other things that are going to be in the works well before this, that if they start the development, that is added traffic on both small and large vehicles to this project. And I think that's always been a concern when we had the bridge fire. We saw every road in this region locked up. And so I think that's the other portion of that, as well as, you look at if there are major events in the area, as with what they have developed for the convention centers and whatnot, we're seeing added volume for things happening in the region. So I think definitely a re-examination of widening it has to go into consideration. You could be sitting in traffic on a bridge well before rush hour for some time if there was an event or something that we've seen, a car show or anything, even a WNBA basketball game. So I think that's really got to be taken into consideration, because those are things that we're starting to see ramp up in the region, and we've got to be mindful of all of that development that's going to be well underway by the time this project is even started.
Yeah, before we get to the gentleman, just want to mention one general note. So we really appreciate all of your inputs. So as just want to clarify, so we had the original scope, but it doesn't mean that's set in stone. So that's why this is part of the public outreach program. So we will continue to seek the inputs, and then we are developing the projects as we go. So certainly we will take into consideration all of the inputs from the public. So just want to clarify that. Please go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned 80% of the project is going to be federally funded.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
And who's the lead federal agency?
FHWA, Federal Highway Administration.
Federal Highway Administration? I concur with the messaging that's been conveyed so far regarding the traffic concern. I'm going to use another example. Laurel Bridge in Norwich was closed because it had to be completely renovated. Some people might remember that. That created absolute chaos for 6 months. So if you're working in downtown Norwich, you were having difficulty getting to work and leaving work. I would highly recommend that we look at staggering some of these projects, particularly between Gold Star Bridge and this particular project, okay? Because it's going to create a problem, as you've already heard. I want to ask some questions about any structural concerns. I happened to be out in Maryland when Key Bridge went down. And that was also chaos from a traffic point of view, clearly, obviously. Have we looked at, strikes to the base of this bridge by vessels passing by? I hadn't heard anything in the presentation regarding that kind of an analysis.
Yep.
Yes.
So I'll let Dan Hoffman, if you want to talk, or Ryan Cooley, either of you guys.
Well, if you want to talk on Majeski's work today.
Yeah, sure. So we are, as part of the the fender system, the protection for that pier, is obviously in poor condition. So we have a sub-consultant, Majestic Masters out of Pennsylvania. They are working on the replacement design for that fender system. So that is one of the components of the project is for that, is to get that, replace the fender system with a new fender system that's up to current collision loading, national collision loading.
But does that include the actual concrete structure that holds the bridge itself up?
Well, the point of the fender system is to defend it from any strike.
They're basically
So
bumpers to,
wood piers versus,
So it's to absorb and deflect the energy. When you're talking barges, it's a tremendous load. You know, you talked about that other bridge, it had more of a dolphin system, so there were just individual piers that you could sneak in between. This one really does direct and divert the, there's like deflection criteria where the thing can absorb it, move and push it back. You know, they're really truly designed to not allow the impact. The good thing is that barge traffic through here, the size of the barges aren't to the scale of a main, you know, artery. You're not getting as much, you might be getting the barge traffic, but just not the size that would be a true concern.
agreed, but my understanding is we're looking at increasing the vessel traffic through there. In fact, didn't we get a barge stuck there today?
Yes.
Both barge and boat.
Mhm.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are in coordination with the US Coast Guard. You know, they're the ones that provide the numbers and the sizes and the amounts and stuff like that. You know, volume of it, we're not as worried about the, you know, number of it. It's truly the size that we're designing it for. Excellent.
Yeah, and just to elaborate, so that's based on like a probability analysis as well, right? So as you mentioned, the event at Key Bridge, right? So that's a like really extreme event. So we are driven by the actual code, so our design code. So it rare is like 10,000 years, I know, event in 20,000 years. So that's how we measure the performance of the fender system. And just to let you know, after that incident, right, actually the state did go and check all of our major bridges in navigational waterway, and we did not identify immediate threat. But we will continue to look into all individual bridges to improve the conditions. But again, on the analysis side, it's based on probability. So that's in the design code.
I asked two questions and I promised to shut up.
No, go on.
I heard scour system and it was in fair condition. Where's the scour system located? Is that the base of the support structure for the bridge?
Yeah, so the bridges, the piers are supported on piles that are driven down the bedrock. So then the footing, there's a thickness of the footing cap, which the piles extend up into. Then below that, there's it's 14 feet deep of concrete, which is called underwater concrete, trimming core that surrounds the piles and underneath that. So the channel has exposed the top portion of the footing over the years. It, you know, a little bit here, it changes as it goes. But right, based on the depth that's still there below to actually reduce your pile fixity conditions. Yeah, it's determined to be not an issue.
Not a issue.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and we
plans
do
to-
have the deep foundations that are providing a backup for that.
Okay.
So we have deep piles driven deep, yep.
yeah, so on this screen here, you can kind of see, so like these lines here are what the bottom of stream bed looks like. This is that footing that he was talking about that the piles go into, and then this is the 14 feet of the tremie concrete that we don't show to the bottom. So we still have plenty of concrete, so those piles won't actually or should not actually become exposed and cause any issues like that.
Last question pertains to guardrails and guides coming onto the decking. There's recent studies underway having to do with guardrails not being able to stop EVs because of their weight. Are we considering reinforcing the guardrails along this bridge, or more importantly, if we actually look to widen the bridge, it gives us an opportunity to take that into consideration. Expand it.
So currently, no. We're currently designing all roadside barriers to MASH criteria, which is, FHWA does a bunch of testing. They come out, that becomes the standard. I have heard, numerous times about the EVs and the loadings, but we're really kind of bound to the FHWA standards. So as, that stuff begins to evolve and come out, it will be, but
It's definitely a concern coming
Yeah.
off of 395 as you're entering that bridge at, higher speeds, and these are all torque. So,
Yep.
there'd be a concern of plummets.
Yep.
If something gets away. So,
Mhm.
thank you, guys. Appreciate
problem.
it.
Before I get to you, could I just answer some online questions quickly? So we have 3 online questions. One was asking about an SBE set aside for this project. For the design phase, there is no SBE set aside. There's a 9% DBE set aside. And then for the construction phase or construction activities, we have not gotten to the point of determination for how much that set aside is going to be. Well, another question was asking about the fender system and asking if the piles supporting the system will be replaced. The piles and the entire system will be replaced. We're looking at doing a replacement in kind pending the analysis and everything like you were talking about. But the entire system, including the pylons, will be replaced. And then the third question is asking, what are the shutdown hours for the work, link loaders, etc. Do you want to talk more to that?
Yeah.
You kind of didn't.
We're looking at off-peak. Maintaining the lanes, the 2 existing lanes. For all the peak hours, and then off-peak, we would come in and reduce that to one-way alternating traffic in order to work on a portion of the center of the bridge. But that would be off-peak, which is, about nighttime, and weekend hours, which are really determined by the traffic counts. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. Okay. Your question?
Yep, so to start, my name is Kevin Blacker. I'm a resident of Knowing. I have an interest in shipping on the Thames. My first question is in regards to, everybody else in the room might know, but I don't know. I was hoping to know who the previous speakers were and what their positions were, because I think that really has merit on the questions that were asked. Are you all familiar, or would the previous speakers be willing to just identify themselves?
Michael Johnson, on the Tribal Historic Preservation Office for the Mohegan-Pequot tribe.
Earl Wilson, the representative of 46th District, which is
Kathy Austin, State Senator, Marlboro, Eden, London, Columbia Spring, Franklin, Norwich, Lisbon, Ledger, part of Montville, and the 2 tribal reservations sit in the confines of my district.
Let me Montville Mayor.
Thanks. So I think that the previous speakers raised a bunch of really good points. The homeland security and the fear of something happening down at the Gold Star, such as the oil spill or the accident down in Maryland, and its potential to really snarl traffic, and then have us as a region rely on this bridge as a backup. I think that the vessel strike that was brought up by the gentleman here is a very, very good point. Traffic is increasing on the river and is projected to increase. I would agree wholeheartedly with Senator Ostin that I think you guys are thinking much too small. I think a bridge that is wider, taller, and wider, not just on top, but underneath, to account for and allow that increased navigation underneath. And I also don't think that we should constrain ourselves to just thinking about a bridge just because a bridge was there. I think we should also consider or keep an open mind to a tunnel. You referenced and I'm very sorry, I don't know your name, sir, in the blue.
Oh, that's Bao Chong. Bao.
Yeah, thank you. You referenced this, a strike being in that these things are evaluated in terms of maybe engineering probability and that it's extremely unlikely. I think that it is wise to engineer for the absolute worst case scenario, build things as strong as they're absolutely able to be built, engineer around every single problem, because when there is a catastrophe, it really, it just saves a lot of money. And from a homeland security, I think that going after, creatively going after funding from the tribal partners, as Senator Ostin referenced, from seeking homeland security funding and thinking bigger. So thank you very much for putting this on.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. Again, we have been made aware of like developments in the region as well. It's not like we are not aware at all. But just want to mention the reason we started this project again because of the structural components. And when they are dropped to poor condition, we are obligated to take action to prevent failure of those components. And as you know, if they fail, let's say the bearings, they are rated 4. If we do not take care of them now, they will be worsened and then potentially fail. That's why it's driven. We are driven by a lot of factors too. So there are for us, public safety is #1 priority. So that's why we will need to take action in consideration with every other factors. Like we just mentioned, we are collecting more feedback from the public, and we haven't made the decision. This is our proposal, right? And as we will continue to evaluate to see what is the best action here. At the same time, right, we have to be mindful of the conditions, right? Like I was saying, they're not going to get better, but they will be getting worse. So we need to take that into consideration as well. Just to mention that for the design team. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I didn't wanna-
I'm sorry. I think the other gentleman raised his hand first.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You guys go rock, paper, scissors. Who goes first?
Well, I just want to make sure there's no reducing the vertical clearance. Work with Captain Hillside, Tucker Braddock, and Don Wallace at the trying really hard to get more shipping up there. We put cleats all at Mel Weezy's dock. It's great to see the research ship there. Trying to get more docks in there. Don Wallace told me today, but. My son's been working really hard, trying to get them, the yachts in Greenport to come up, we're actually trying to offer for a nominal fee to pilot them, but they're afraid of the river. My son's working really hard to get the state license for the foreign British flag yachts to bring them up. And hopefully he gets it. He just got that in, they had the deadline there last weeks ago. So, whatever, we're gonna help that. Oh, and them abutments, they say they're gonna replace that in kind like it is wood.
As of right now, so the abutments on the bridge, we're not replacing at all. The current scope that we presented today, we would be replacing the fender system.
Fender system.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that,
Fenders, yep.
yeah, so these wood fenders, we would be replacing basically in kind in the same profile where they are. So the actual navigable channel width will not change. And the vertical clearance to the bottom of the bridge we're not adjusting that right now.
See it higher.
Mm.
Like they don't bridge, they can be done, but I'm sure they're not gonna do that.
Yeah, the big issue with raising a bridge is just impact all the approach roadways. That ends up tracing it all the way back.
Can't believe they did the Barrel Bridge for the Panamax ships to get on there.
Yeah,
Anyway, but I'm
but
surprised.
we're definitely not lowering it.
No, good. That sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
That sounds
Coast
good.
Guard would be all over us. They do not like that.
I was bringing two barges down the river bringing stone over to Long Island. That I had to leave at night from Norwich in order to get slack water at Plum Gut, because that current really runs and I had two barges. But, yeah, the booze are lit up there. I had to spot them and everything, you know. But, I'm surprised if they would replace that with wood, because now they use this high density polyethylene.
Yep,
Very nice stuff.
Yeah,
It's got a
we-
strengthened member inside. They did the London Bridge.
yeah, we looked at both alternatives.
Oh, yeah.
We chose the wood alternative. It's a little
Oh.
cheaper because the service life of this bridge, it's eventually gonna be replaced. So we
Okay.
don't want to put a system in there that's gonna outlast the life of the bridge.
Oh, I see.
Be kind of a waste.
Yeah.
So
That was
that's why we
beautiful, that
went with
stuff they
a
have
wooden
down there.
system. Yeah,
We were working on with Chimbo,
yeah,
Very
I think
nice.
that's got like a
but that would last
50
forever.
50 cent
Yeah.
plus
It was at
year
least
life.
50 years.
Yeah, 50+ year life.
Yeah, I see.
Dan Drainville from the Day newspaper in New London. Just kind of jumping off some of the other points that were made. I was curious if the bridge widening had ever been considered at any point. I mean, you could argue that it is something that relates to safety issues. You could make that point. I understand that the strategy here is to replace core components of the bridge. But if that's the case, then at what point I guess the DOT consider that, and what would it take to see a project like that begin?
So I could talk to that. So we did look at, we looked at the preservation job, which is what we're presenting today. We looked at a minor rehabilitation, a superstructure replacement, which would accommodate the deck widening to allow for sidewalks and everything like that. And then we also looked at a full bridge replacement. Since this was scoped originally as a preservation job, so it's basically just to keep the components that are there in good condition or bump them back up to a good condition, to give us some extra years of service. That was the cheapest option, and that's what we were going with. That's the $33 million that was presented today. Of that $33 million, about half of that alone is just for the fender system replacement. So really it's minor work that we're doing on the bridge. It sounds like we're doing a lot, but it was pretty minor work. To do the superstructure replacement, which would allow for the deck winding and everything else, we're looking at increasing to $206 million. So that was a significant increase. And then the full bridge replacement was about $227 million. So that was one of the reasons why we had stuck with the original scope of just doing the preservation work. And then we would reevaluate in a couple years, coming back and actually doing, once the bridge gets closer to the end of the service life, come back and actually do the replacement. That was, of course, prior to today.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Go
a
ahead.
follow-up? So the end of the service life, this project is aimed to extend the end of the service life, is that correct?
Yes.
So then if we're going out 20 years from now, and this will allow the bridge to operate safely 20 years into the future, does that also simultaneously push back something like a bridge widening project at the same time? So if that were the case, then is it possible to look at a bridge widening project before end of life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk
Maybe
to
yes.
that?
Yeah, so in general comments, so we developed the scope here based on what we know now. So we do have a team, right? So we are just not just working in bridge design. We have the traffic team, highway design. So based on the available information to us, then we think we can address the structural needs first. And then, of course, if we are considering major traffic generator, like James just said, so like Senator Olson just brought up, in 3 months, there will be significant increase in traffic. So that kind of information will need to be looked at. We can certainly revisit that option. So this project was initiated a couple of years ago as a group of projects, right, when we try to tap into the federal infrastructure bill fund. So we based on the information at that time. Now, if we have more information, we will happy to relook at the whole area, right? So that's something that we have been talking to upper management about it as well. So we actually want to contact more with, connect with Senator Olson and other groups again as necessary.
Yeah, we'll reach out to the two tribes on the developments and figure out what those, the anticipated traffic counts and everything like that are. And then we can wrap that into what we've looked at already and see if it, how we want to move forward from that.
Yeah, so it's possible.
Yes.
So right now, the bridge is at end of life, and if it's not.
No.
When is the end of life?
Expected life for the structure usually about 100 years, so we have like 57 years.
Mm.
Yeah.
So to Colin's point, this preservation project would add 20 years to its existing time frame.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Will be, yeah, to 20 years until it would need an
More
additional,
yeah.
more work done.
Yeah, I see it.
Yes.
So if I could suggest that, you know, because both tribal nations have 6,000 workers at the two, give or take, a couple of hundred at each reservation. That's 12,000 people that are just in and of themselves probably crossing that bridge. And they both are looking at huge expansions. And so it seems to me that as the state of Connecticut says, they are looking at the two tribal nations as partners, that really it's incumbent upon the third leg of that partnership to reach out to them and give them that respect of being a real partner, which is not waiting to get the information from them, but to actually have the conversation with them. And I was on the Council of Governments in probably 5 years ago. And this project was brought up then. I've been in the legislature for 12 years now. And this project has been brought up almost every year in every legislative session on the fact that we should be looking at this project as the expansion for Eastern Connecticut is coming. We know it's going to happen, and now it's right at our doorstep. And so I want to make sure that this is being heard from everybody, that we are looking at a large expansion of traffic usage over the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge. To be very specific, we are looking to probably double the amount of traffic over the Mohegan-Pequot Bridge in the next 12 months, that we should be actually paying attention to that. And the time frame, if we're going to put, and I realize that 30-some million is not a lot of money in bridge work. No, paying $300 and some million on the Gold Star Bridge on just one side of it. You know, I understand that, but there is no sense to do this in half measure. We really need to take care of this in full measure and look at the planning agency for the region is the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments.
Yep.
And they have been writing letters for years on this bridge. And the two tribal nations have been writing letters for years on this bridge. And the legislative delegation has been saying out loud at transportation committee meetings and other venues that this bridge is important for us to do for economic development and public safety. So I really think that we need to think bigger on this and actually take care of it once and for all. We are not only looking on it as a vehicular increase of traffic. The Norwich Marina it had twice the number of boats in it this year. And next year we'll have it, will again double its size for the number of boats that will be going up and down the river. We're putting in fuel tanks so that they can fuel up there to make it all the way back down. These are common everyday things that we all know are going on. The town of Preston itself has put in for a huge project in their village. That is going to happen. These are things that we know are going to happen. We may not know the development that the Mohegan Tribal Nation is putting in, but we certainly know what Mashantucket is doing because they are ready to open up. So I just really think that we have to step back and not do things to extend the use of a bridge that will very shortly need expansion just for the regular usage of it, for the projects that we know are going to happen, never mind what we don't know is going to happen, because we still have the Norwich side of the Norwich State Hospital property that is not yet firmed up for development. But we know something is going to happen there. So I can't say enough that I think that this is a mistake in spending, dollars that we need to look at expanding the usage of this for many means of travel.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why, like Val had mentioned before, that's why we have these meetings, because everyone here is the ones that are living the day-to-day in these regions and dealing with the consequences or impacts of the project, or the traffic that's in the area. So that's why we wanted to get your guys' input, and everything like that. So you were talking about the Council of Governments before. So Kate Rattan from the COG actually has a couple questions online. So I'll read those now. The first one says this project is not classified as a major rehabilitation, which excludes necessary scope elements to address fundamental issues with modal equity. Despite this, the scope is extensive. How does the cost of the project compare with reconstruction of the structure? The Mohegan tribe is a federal environmental justice area, and Preston is identified as a distressed community. These designations highlight the need for consideration of a multimodal access. So that kind of wraps into what you had just mentioned, and I had talked about the price or cost difference between the different alternatives earlier. So like I said, we would be looking from a $33 million project to about a $206 to $230 million project overall with that. And if we were to do a replacement or reevaluate doing a replacement, we would obviously look at doing multimodal transportation, seeing how the only access right now is the Gold Star Bridge and then downtown Norwich. So this would obviously be the major avenue between those two. So we would look into all of that too. She also mentioned that the SEAT Transit District facility on Route 2A will construct a BEB maintenance facility at the same time as the construction period. What coordination has been done between these projects? Constructing a new laydown area may have archaeological impacts. And did we consider utilizing the DOT maintenance facility of Route 2A? So the laydown area that we had shown earlier was just a potential laydown area. There is a quite large laydown area right along the Route 2A, right before the bridge on the west side of the bridge near the exit there. So there are multiple areas that we can look at that would hopefully not have archaeological impacts. We have not coordinated at this time with the SEAT Transit District facility, but we will reach out to them and coordinate with their maintenance facility and this project to make sure that we're not conflicting or hurting anybody with the project schedules. And then the last question is the scope does not address signal operations of Route 12, which experiences significant congestion and delays and do not adequately accommodate non-recurring events such as Mohegan Sun and Foxwood shows. The signal system is within close proximity and should be considered with the project. So to address this, we have our project development unit is looking at ways that we could do intersection improvements in that area. Pending what their investigation shows us, we will incorporate it into this project if we are to move forward with either increasing or changing the signals in the area, doing a roundabout, anything of those natures. So we are looking into it, and it may get incorporated into this project or
I
would
would
get.
like to add on that Preston is not the only EJ community, along with two tribal nations. They're both considered EJ, but distressed municipalities are prolific in eastern Connecticut, and right in this area, Montville is a distressed municipality, Norwich is a distressed municipality, Preston is a distressed municipality. They are all incorporated into the EJ world of things, and both tribal nations are considered economic justice and DEI communities. So this is something that, I mean, I know often Eastern Connecticut gets left off of the list of consideration relative to distressed municipalities, but more than half of the distressed municipalities in the state are in Eastern Connecticut along the 395 corridor. So, you know, I know that there's someone here from Preston, but I just think that this whole concentrated corridor is a distressed municipality. Both Groton and New London on the other side are distressed also.
I think
Thank
the
you.
message to the state should be that the part of Connecticut will be experiencing added volume of traffic, and we need this bridge to facilitate that increased volume.
Yep.
Sure.
And we will,
Noted.
when we get back to the office tomorrow, we'll coordinate and reach out to the tribes for those two developments and see what the traffic generating is. And we'll coordinate with the towns and the COG just to see what other developments are going on in the area. So that way we have the latest and greatest numbers. As I mentioned before, just in the future, not necessarily for this project, in the future, any traffic impacts like that should be coordinated with the LTAs, the local traffic authorities, so that they can actually get brought up to the state in the correct channels. Because otherwise it's us on the design team. Unless somebody writes us a letter, we won't actually necessarily hear about it. So, but yeah, we'll reach out and we'll coordinate, make sure we have everything that we have. So that way we're not designing, we don't want to design this in a bubble. We don't want to not take into account what's going on in the area. We want everyone's input.
Yes, and just reiterate your point. Actually, I'm glad you also mentioned both the economic development and public safety. So we always keep both in mind. And so the projects, I just want to mention, is not the only way that we can, let's say, fix our bridges. We have our maintenance force, but you know they only can take care of certain work amount. Right? They have limited resources as well. So when they cannot get to, let's say, and especially for major bridges like this one, then you know we will need a project to take care of like a poor condition components. So just want to reiterate that yeah, we will revisit the scope. It may be adjusted, but at the same time we certainly need to address the structural components to prevent failures. So I appreciate all of the inputs.
So again, I'm gonna say I push back on your talking point on the local traffic authorities. These are big projects that are happening in a regional area that DOT and the design team should be looking. This has been in newspapers for a long time. It's been on radio, it's been on TV, this has been at multiple meetings at the legislative level and at the local level. So I think to say that that's how you get your information.
I'm not saying that's the only way sorry.
I know, I get it. I'm just saying that we're not the only project in the state. And I'm hoping that you're also looking at the local press or whatever part of the state you're working on, because it's important. These are important components, and we should not be doing design work on bridges. You're at 30%. And other than tonight's meeting, it appears that you did not know about this. So I appreciate the work you do. I think you guys do great work. I like the fact that I'm driving around and I'm in traffic jams that are the result of construction. I am thrilled to death with us fixing bridges and fixing roadways. I just want this one to be at the level that would make us all proud in this part of the state to see a project that addresses all issues right up front. So, you know, I understand what you're saying. I just think that there has to be consideration of local events that are going on. And I know people have written letters about this because I've signed some of those
Yep.
letters. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we're thinking about it. And again, this is no disrespect to anybody that is a consultant at the Department of Transportation or an employee of the Department of Transportation. You all do great work. This is important, and we cannot do it in a half measure.
Yep.
We have to do it in a complete way that looks at our partners of Mashantucket and Mohegan, the actual real work that's going on out there. We consider it to be very important.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
so,
definitely
look,
important.
what I was gonna say before is it's the LTA and OSTA is not the only way we get the information to us. But that is how we get the numbers on what we have to design the traffic stuff for. So, Great Wolf Lodge at Foxwoods there, definitely gonna be a traffic generator. Preston Riverwalk Development will be a traffic generator. But to what extent will those, and that's what we need the coordination with the LTAs and OSTA, because we can't, I mean, we can sit here and put a 8-lane highway bridge. We don't want to. But that's what we want to make sure we're designing something that actually can account all the developments that's going on into the area and all the residents and everything else. We don't want to, you had mentioned before over engineering or over designing. We don't want to over design, put too much, because then that's additional roadway that our maintenance forces have to sit there and plow during the winter or take care of during the summers and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we do account for any traffic generators in the area, and we will reach out and coordinate with our partners at the tribes.
Yeah, and internal groups too. Yes, we're gonna continue to work like we said. We have a team, right? So we also receive information from other groups. So yeah, after in light of all of the public information, then we will go back and work with other units.
Yep. We have another question or comment from Kate Rattan, and it says this project is likely to have operational impacts to seat services. What mitigation can be included with this project to ensure that the transit district serving the Norwich, New London urban areas is not impacted? So as of right now, with the current scope that was shown today, the traffic impacts would be limited to daytime like lane shifts. So we'd be closing the shoulders and we would keep one lane operational in each direction. And the nighttime closures or alternating one way would only be done in nighttime or off-peak hours. So shouldn't have any significant impact to the seat services within the area. And it looks like that's all we have for online questions at the time. Does anybody here have any additional questions, comments, concerns?
Just a comment, you said that the comment period closes December 5th. I always like to advocate for towns to have more time and maybe more notices that go out. Again, I see a lot of empty seats in here, not a lot of people online. So I would suggest, you know, thinking about looking for an expansion of that deadline and try to do more outreach to the towns, in my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, and also so we can also have follow-up meetings too. It depends. So a lot of these public info meeting, right? And sometimes it's warranted to have follow-up meeting. And looks like we may have a case here when there are more open-ended discussions, so to speak. So yeah, it doesn't mean we're gonna end the public input, you can get back to us. But the official commenting period for this event will be closed that day. Then we can move to the next step. But you know, it doesn't mean you cannot continue to send us comments. Okay.
So I would just point out that the Great Wolf Lodge is gonna be 549 room resort, located on 13 acres, and will feature 91,000 square foot indoor water park and a 61,000 square foot family entertainment center.
Wow.
That is not something tiny that we're gonna
Yeah.
see 20 cars come to. We are gonna see a lot of people that come to that particular resort, both on a daily event and on a weekend event and on a, it's gonna be open 365 days a year.
So just to confirm, is the construction, the plan is confirmed?
It's being
So
constructed
this will
now.
be
It's
open in
constructed.
3 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 or 4 months, by the mid-March, it's supposed to be open.
Also, that's the one you mentioned that will be open
Yep.
soon. Okay. Because we understand there are other ideas too, but this is the one that's
There's
going to be
ideas
open.
on the Mohegan side for the
Yes.
Preston River Walk. That is not, that is conceptual in
Gotcha.
nature, but
Yeah.
it's not far down. They were waiting for the brownfields to be done. The brownfields are done and they're gonna be signing that over to Mohegan. Preston, the town of Preston's gonna be signing that over probably, if they haven't done it already, shortly.
Yeah, they told us, we had met with the towns earlier this year and they told us, I believe by the end of the year that the property would be transferred over.
Wow. And this will be great for the region, for sure.
We think it's great too. Why we want a bigger bridge.
We like to design bigger bridge as well. But thank you for the input.
Oh.
We have more.
Another question online, the structure is part of the straw net. The Navy should be coordinated with in addition to the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security to address Homeland Security issues. That was something you had brought up earlier too. So we'll definitely make sure we do the coordination with the Navy and Demas. Do we have any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, we'll definitely take all the input from today, any input that we get over the next 2 weeks as well. And we'll reevaluate and look at how we want to move forward from here. And we'll definitely be in coordination with the tribes and the towns and all of our legislators.
Okay.
So thank you very much for attending today and safe travels home.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.